Many people believe that simply wearing an amulet chosen by the right person and on the right day will ward off misfortune. However, the truth is that in Feng Shui, some people find their luck declining, their minds becoming increasingly uneasy, and their decisions getting worse the more they wear amulets. The problem isn't with the amulet itself, but with how people understand and use it. In this video, I won't discuss whether amulets are effective or not, but rather explain why amulets aren't created to save you, and why, if used incorrectly, they can subtly drag your luck down without you even realizing it. When it comes to amulets, many people's initial reaction is often one of two completely opposite extremes. One side believes that simply carrying an amulet from the right person on the right day will ward off misfortune and block bad luck. The other side argues that it's all superstition, nothing more than self-reassurance. The important thing is that neither of these interpretations touches upon the true nature of amulets in Feng Shui. If amulets were merely objects capable of absolute protection, why do some people who carry amulets for years still experience misfortune, while others who carry nothing live very peacefully? And if amulets were completely meaningless, why were amulets in ancient Feng Shui still mentioned as tools to be used cautiously, not encouraged for indiscriminate use? From this point, we need to understand that amulets are not a shield against all risks, nor are they magical spells that change destiny. In Feng Shui, amulets are considered adjusting objects, not absolute protectors. They don't bear the consequences of one's karma or mistakes, but rather influence the individual's energy field, where small decisions, unconscious reflexes, and daily mental states are formed. Therefore, with the same amulet, some people feel more peaceful, live more slowly, are more cautious, and thus avoid many unnecessary pitfalls. But others carry amulets with a resigned attitude, believing they are protected, leading them to act more subjectively, more recklessly, and ultimately this misguided belief drags them into trouble. This is why amulets are one of the most misunderstood things in modern Feng Shui. People often ask whether amulets are effective, forgetting the more important question: how does carrying an amulet change one's life? Feng Shui has never encouraged people to entrust their fate to an external object, because the core of Feng Shui is to create harmony between the environment and people, not to replace the role of consciousness and action. Amulets, if used correctly, only serve as a spiritual anchor, helping the wearer maintain stability during turbulent periods. But if used incorrectly, they can easily become an excuse to evade responsibility for one's own choices. In the following section, we will delve into the Feng Shui roots of amulets to clarify why, in ancient Feng Shui systems, amulets were always classified as auxiliary tools, requiring proper understanding before use, and never considered the primary path to changing one's destiny. To properly understand Feng Shui amulets, we must return to the roots of ancient Feng Shui, where amulets did not appear as separate sacred objects, but rather as a very small part of the system that harmonizes the energy between humans and their living environment. In ancient Feng Shui writings, amulets were not placed on par with houses, directions, terrain, or energy flows, but were only considered a conduit used when people needed a temporary anchor to stabilize their personal energy field. Therefore, traditional Feng Shui amulets are often very simple, even rustic, without elaborate forms or ostentatious colors, because their purpose is not to attract energy from the outside, but to regulate internal dispersion. A true Feng Shui amulet is always composed of three core elements: form, substance, and meaning. Lacking one of these three, the amulet loses its balancing effect. The form here is not simply a drawing or symbol, but a visual structure stable enough for the brain to recognize and remember. Balanced, enclosed shapes with a clear axis are often used not for their supposed efficacy, but because they create a subconscious sense of order and security. When a person carries or frequently sees these shapes, their nervous system tends to reduce excessive vigilance, thus slowing their reaction to stressful situations. The material of the amulet plays a role in maintaining and transmitting that state. Ancient Feng Shui prioritizes stable, less changeable materials because an object that is too light, too fragile, or too decorative will struggle to serve as an anchor point. But the most important thing, and also the most often overlooked element, is the intention. The intention is not in the amulet itself, but in the connection between the user and the object called the amulet. When a person carries an amulet with a fearful mindset, hoping for absolute protection, the amulet inadvertently becomes a symbol of insecurity, constantly reminding them of danger and risk. Conversely, when a talisman is seen as a reminder to slow down and be more mindful, it is that very idea that exerts its harmonizing effect. This is why in Orthodox Feng Shui, talismans are not passed around indiscriminately and mass copying is discouraged. Because when the intention is separated from the user, the talisman becomes merely an empty form. From this, we can clearly see the difference between Feng Shui talismans and those based on folk beliefs. Religious talismans often rely heavily on belief in an external deity or force, while Feng Shui talismans emphasize adjusting one's inner strength and state of mind. Feng Shui does not deny belief, but it does not place belief above clear thinking. Talismans are not created to replace house repairs, lifestyle changes, or ways of thinking, but are only used when those fundamental elements are relatively stable. If the living environment is chaotic and the mind is disordered, resorting to talismans is like trying to patch a leaky boat with a thin piece of cloth. When it comes to the mechanisms of amulets, many people expect a mystical explanation, as if some invisible force directly intervenes in destiny. But ancient Feng Shui doesn't describe amulets that way. Instead, it approaches amulets as an indirect, slow, but profound influence, working through psychology, behavior, and how people react to their surroundings. An amulet doesn't emit energy to protect you. Rather, it acts as a trigger point for awareness, causing you to adjust your state of life towards greater stability. When a person uses an amulet correctly, the first change is often not in their external circumstances, but in their inner rhythm of life. They begin to observe more, act less hastily, and are less swept away by fleeting emotions. This subtle change significantly reduces the likelihood of making wrong decisions during sensitive times. In Feng Shui, this is called a shift in trajectory, not a sudden change in fate. The amulet doesn't pull you down a different path, but prevents you from taking wrong turns that lead to loss. Many people claim that after wearing an amulet, they avoided accidents, avoided conflicts, or stopped just in time before making a dangerous decision. But if you observe carefully, you'll see that these things don't happen randomly. The amulet doesn't create luck. It increases the wearer's sensitivity to pre-existing warning signs. A strange look, a fleeting feeling of unease, or an inexplicable slowdown, all are subtle reflexes that a stable mind is more likely to recognize. When the mind is disturbed, people often ignore these signals and rush straight into trouble. Therefore, the amulet is ineffective when the wearer lives in a state of prolonged stress or is completely dependent on it. Conversely, amulets are only effective when they become a very quiet part of life, present enough to remind, but not so dominant as to control. This is why those who carry amulets with a showy, boastful, or clingy attitude often receive no benefit and may even feel more insecure. When an amulet is placed too centrally in one's thoughts, it increases attention to risk, keeping the nervous system constantly on guard. Feng Shui does not work well in that state. A good amulet doesn't make you think about it repeatedly throughout the day, but rather allows you to live a smoother day without having to remember it. It's also important to clarify that amulets cannot compensate for prolonged bad choices. If a person consistently places themselves in toxic environments, draining relationships, or an unbalanced lifestyle, the amulet can only slow down the consequences, not prevent them. Feng Shui always prioritizes adjusting the foundation first, then offers supporting tools. Amulets are just one of those tools, and they only play their role when placed correctly within the overall human life system. Once you understand that amulets are not objects that change destiny, but rather tools for adjusting one's state of life, classifying them according to Feng Shui becomes extremely important. Many people encounter problems not because the amulet is ineffective, but because they use the wrong type of amulet for the wrong stage of their life. In Feng Shui, amulets are not classified according to the 5 elements as is commonly done today, but rather according to their function in influencing the individual's energy field. The first group is protective amulets, which have the effect of maintaining stability, reducing fluctuations, and preserving the wearer's strength. Protective amulets are often used during periods of significant life changes, such as moving house, changing jobs, frequent travel, or when a person is going through an uncertain cycle. This type of amulet is not intended to bring about anything new, but rather to help the wearer avoid being too deeply caught up in the surrounding chaos. Therefore, protective amulets are usually very simple in form, with few details, and are recommended for use for a relatively short period. The second group consists of calming amulets, which primarily affect mental state. When a person is frequently anxious, suffers from insomnia, is easily angered, or is overwhelmed by negative thoughts, adjusting to the external environment may not be quick enough. Calming amulets are used as a temporary mental anchor, helping to calm the nervous system and reduce excessive reactions. However, this is also the group of amulets most easily abused, because if worn for too long without adjusting one's lifestyle, the user will develop an unconscious dependence, feeling insecure whenever the amulet is not present. Orthodox Feng Shui always emphasizes that calming amulets should only be used for short periods, alongside adjusting one's lifestyle and living space. The third group consists of amulets for attracting wealth and success, which are most often promoted because they appeal to the desire for wealth, fame, and opportunities. However, in Feng Shui, amulets for attracting wealth and success should only be used when the foundation is stable, the mind is firm, and the living environment is no longer filled with too much conflict. If you use a lucky charm when you're feeling confused and lacking direction, instead of helping, it can increase feelings of insecurity because it amplifies the tendency to act and decide. Those who are hasty will become even more hasty. Those who are greedy will become even more greedy, and this leads to mistakes. This is why many people complain that wearing a lucky charm leads to financial loss, not because the charm is bad, but because it was used at the wrong time. Besides these three main groups, Feng Shui also warns against using certain types of charms long-term, such as those with strong suppressive properties, overly sharp symbols, or containing opposing concepts. These charms may create a temporary sense of security, but in the long run, they easily leave the wearer constantly on the defensive, tired and stressed. Feng Shui does not advocate living in constant defense, because a healthy energy field is one that is balanced, not one that is always strained. When you understand this classification correctly, you'll realize that the issue isn't whether or not to wear amulets, but rather what stage of life you're in and what adjustments you need. In the next section, we'll discuss a very important but often overlooked group: those who shouldn't wear amulets, because in certain situations, wearing an amulet not only doesn't help, but can actually complicate things further. There's a truth rarely mentioned in popular Feng Shui videos. Not everyone is suited to wearing amulets, and wearing one isn't always a wise choice. Feng Shui doesn't operate according to personal desires, but rather according to a person's actual state at each stage. The first group who shouldn't wear amulets are those experiencing severe psychological crises, feeling lost, or being strongly controlled by fear. In this state, the mind constantly seeks external support, and the amulet easily becomes a substitute for clarity. Instead of providing stability, the amulet inadvertently reinforces feelings of insecurity, causing the wearer to constantly worry that something bad will happen without it. Ancient Feng Shui considers this a negative state because the amulet is no longer an anchor, but becomes a source of pressure. The second group consists of those who tend to be overly dependent on external beliefs. These people frequently change amulets, mentors, and protective charms, yet their lives remain unstable. The root of the problem isn't the lack of amulets, but the inability to take responsibility for their own choices. Wearing amulets in this case is like constantly adding decorations to an already shaky structure. It may seem more secure on the outside, but it remains unstable internally. Feng Shui discourages using amulets to avoid difficult decisions or necessary changes. The third group consists of people who are in a phase of breaking down and restructuring their destiny, such as having just ended a long-term relationship, left a previous job, or moved away from a living environment they've been attached to for many years. This is a phase where the old energy flow is dissipating to make way for a new order. Wearing amulets at this time, especially protective or suppressive amulets, can inadvertently keep the person in their old state, slowing down the necessary transformation process. Feng Shui views short-term instability during this period not as bad luck, but as a sign of ongoing change. Trying to suppress it with amulets sometimes only makes people more tired. Furthermore, there's another group that's less frequently mentioned: those who use amulets for ostentation or self-affirmation. When amulets become symbols of boasting, to create a feeling of being more protected than others, they deviate from the spirit of Feng Shui from the outset. At this point, the amulet no longer helps to harmonize, but rather nourishes the ego, and an oversized ego is always the source of unnecessary conflicts. Feng Shui doesn't oppose the use of amulets, but always questions the motives behind them. If the motive stems from fear, avoidance, or comparison, then the amulet is unlikely to play a positive role. Understanding whether you belong to a group that shouldn't wear amulets is a very important step, because sometimes the best thing you can do for your destiny isn't to add a protective amulet, but to temporarily not add anything at all. Once you understand that amulets aren't for everyone and shouldn't be used all the time, the next question, far more important, is how to choose the right one if you do use it. Orthodox Feng Shui doesn't encourage choosing amulets based solely on birth year, zodiac sign, or rigid formulas, because people don't live in one fixed state their entire lives. The first thing to observe isn't your birth sign, but your current state of life. Are you seeking stability, regaining calmness, or are you ready to expand? Answering this question honestly eliminates more than half the risk of using the wrong amulet. A suitable amulet always reduces distractions, not increases attention to itself. Therefore, in terms of form, the simpler the amulet, the better. Overly elaborate, overly symbolic, or ostentatious objects tend to pull the mind away, counteracting the goal of harmonization. Traditional Feng Shui always prioritizes compact, enclosed shapes that are easily recognizable, but not overly stimulating. Regarding materials, the important factor isn't material value, but stability. A good material is one that makes you forget its existence in your daily life. If an object is too light, too fragile, or too easily deformed, it struggles to maintain its role as an energy anchor. Conversely, stable materials that change little over time help maintain a sense of security and consistency. But the most decisive factor is how you establish a relationship with the amulet. Feng Shui doesn't require complex rituals or lengthy prayers. The only thing needed is a moment of clear confirmation that you are using this amulet to remind yourself to live more slowly, more cautiously, or more mindfully, not to avoid responsibility. Once that intention is established, the amulet begins to work as a silent reminder, not needing to be repeated every day. A truly effective amulet is one that doesn't cause you anxiety if you forget to carry it for a day, nor does it make you feel insecure when you put it away. If an object makes you dependent on it, it's no longer a protective amulet, but a psychological burden. Feng Shui always assesses the effectiveness of an amulet through a very simple sign. After a period of use, does your life flow more smoothly? Are you less impulsive, less reactive, and less likely to make impulsive decisions? If the answer is yes, then even if the amulet doesn't take a familiar form, it's still fulfilling its purpose. And when you realize that you've gradually stabilized and no longer need that support, stopping is a natural part of the process. In the next section, we'll discuss when to stop or put away an amulet to avoid holding on to a support tool for too long and inadvertently hindering your own inner growth. One of the clearest signs that someone has misunderstood amulets is that they never think about stopping. Meanwhile, ancient Feng Shui has always considered knowing when to put away an amulet as an essential part of using it correctly. Amulets are not created to accompany a person throughout their life. Their role is only to provide support during a certain period, when the state of life is still unstable. Once the foundation is solid, continuing to keep the amulet is not only unnecessary, but sometimes even slows down inner development. The first sign that you should stop or put away an amulet is when you start thinking about it too much. If every decision is tied to whether or not you have an amulet, if your sense of security depends on the presence of an object, then it is no longer an amulet, but has become a psychological anchor. Feng Shui does not encourage any form of prolonged dependence, even if it is in the name of protection. The second sign is when the amulet no longer provides a sense of stability, but instead makes you restless, irritable, or easily distracted. This often happens when your state of mind has changed, but the amulet retains its original role. A tool that works well at one stage may become out of sync at another, and Feng Shui considers this very natural. Additionally, when you find yourself calm enough to face difficult situations without seeking external support, that's when the amulet has completed its task. Putting the amulet away in this case isn't abandonment or ingratitude, but rather a transfer of responsibility from the object to yourself. Feng Shui doesn't require a complicated ritual for discarding the amulet. The most important thing is your attitude when you stop. There's no need to worry that putting away the amulet will bring bad luck, because if that happens, the amulet wasn't used correctly in the first place. A suitable way to stop is simply to acknowledge that you no longer need that support and store the amulet in a clean, quiet place, or return it to its natural environment if the material allows. The feeling of relief after stopping the amulet is a good sign, indicating that your energy field has balanced itself. Feng Shui views inner growth as the ultimate goal, not the accumulation of tools. The stronger a person is, the less they need external support. But that doesn't mean denying the value of what has supported them in the past. In conclusion, we will close this entire story with a very core perspective to answer the most important question: what exactly do Feng Shui amulets help people with, and where are their limitations? By this point, you've probably realized that Feng Shui amulets are nothing like the image many people imagine. They aren't fate-changing objects, shields against all misfortunes, or tools to avoid the consequences of one's own choices. In Feng Shui, amulets do only one thing. They prevent people from ruining their own destiny during the most vulnerable periods. They don't lift you to great heights, but they prevent you from falling too deeply. They don't create opportunities, but they keep you alert enough not to miss those that have already presented themselves. And most importantly, they don't live your life for you. They simply remind you to live a little better each day. This is the clear line between Feng Shui and superstition. Superstition empowers external objects, while Feng Shui empowers individuals. A talisman, when used correctly, will gradually become invisible in life, because as people become more stable, calm, and self-controlled, they no longer need to cling to it. Conversely, a talisman used incorrectly will become increasingly noisy, occupying space in one's thoughts, creating fear of losing protection. And that is when the talisman backfires. Feng Shui doesn't seek to protect people from life, but to help them enter life in the least damaging state. If there's one thing to remember after this video, it's that talismans aren't for those who want to be saved, but for those who want to protect themselves. They don't suit a mindset of begging, but only work when accompanied by alertness, responsibility, and understanding of their own limitations. The strongest person isn't the one who carries the most talismans, but the one who knows when to use them and when not, and doesn't let any object replace the role of their consciousness. When you understand that, the Feng Shui amulet will return to its rightful place, not deified, not denied, but used as a very small, very quiet tool, yet at the right time, enough to keep you straight through the important turning points of life. And when you no longer need it, Letting go is also a sign that your fortune has moved to a more stable level.